long live. I started a little bit late. I worked a lot today. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. And yes, it's actually a full moon today, if you haven't noticed. Have you guys checked out the moon lately? Yes. Interesting. And it's just a light, of course, part of nature. The Most High makes many different elements, right? And if they wasted their time fighting with one another, right? Or if the bigger light were to pick on the smaller light, how would that help, society? So, just think about it and what would happen to the world at large, too. I actually have to get my glasses. I've been doing some research today, guys. So I do have a couple of pointers, and there's a huge movement right now. They're calling it anti-feminism, which I really I can only laugh when I see some of the mascots that are used in some of these different type of groups. And I don't know what you guys call it, a study group, a I don't know, it's kind of like an AA group for spiritually sick people. Definitely. So yeah, I'm on my Lois Lane tip today. And yeah, this is actually a dress. I'm loving it. It's like you definitely have to go back in time. And people think it was so easy for women years ago to work and have to be dressed up. Like they literally had to dress up and get out there and just to get their own respect and dignity, and dealing with all the work harassment. I mean, it's definitely humbling, and it shows that the more we go into into the future, the more we feel like we're in the past, if that makes sense, right? And even the story of Superman, everybody wants to be Superman until it's time to be Superman, right? And of course, you got the S for the sun in a way too, right? And there's a lot of esoteric, little connections that go with that. But imagine how the story would have been if he was fighting with Lois Lane, harassing her, giving her a hard time, calling her all these names, being so, so asinine, so idiotic. Let me take a sip of my tea. So, yeah, even in nature, there is a balance and all the elements have a job. You don't see the moon and the sun going at it, or the sun getting in the way of the moon, or, them fighting with, I don't know, another planet or a tree. I mean, when you think about how like the course is, like you take it for granted too. And it made me think the other day when it was really, really windy out. I mean, it was howling outside. And I'm thinking the wind doesn't need permission to come and go, right? It has its courses, its directions it's supposed to go and flow through, but it doesn't need permission, and it doesn't need human intervention either. People like become so intertwined with their inner selves, they tend to forget too that they're just a spark, a microcosm, hence some of the art that I throw up, right? This is all in like my imagery, right? And that your soul, when you think about it, you do all of this and you're just like a spark of consciousness. Like, where does that go, right? So it's a deep thing that even I have thought about even as a child. It doesn't take you to get to a certain age to think about some of this stuff. Let me go grab my readers in case and really put this look together. Maybe I put the black ones on. I think it would match. I left my little cleaning cloth at work, sadly. But I was reading some stuff on the interwebs. Oh, there we go. It completes the look. What's next? I just put up the hair too. Then I'll really be the journalist that I was born to be. But yeah, in this world, right? People are like so easily misled. It's easy to see how some people will fall victim to just some of the stuff that you hear. And it's not encouraging them to be better people. because just doing a little reverse engineering, it doesn't take much. And you get to certain people, you don't even have to be a big channel. But, when I come around, things are about to go down kind of vibe, right? It's about to go down when I come around, because I will say certain things and obviously it gets under people's skin. Let me make sure too that I'm not muted, because sometimes with this, I should have played it before. I like to do a sound check. I asked you guys to like the video when I'm on, just to make sure that the audio is working. And again, not doing this fast. This is, technically I wouldn't call it a school night, but I have to be up tomorrow. So let's see, let's make sure. So I always get the trolls in here first, and people usually catch the replay, which is totally fine. But what would happen though if nature just started fighting itself? What would happen though? There we go. If the sun was giving the moon a hard time and not worrying about coming out and shining, and they both have, their different times of day that they come out and they do their thing, right? You just think about it. And the moon is actually a feminine energy that you can find. Don't mind my voice, guys. I've been talking all day at work. And if you are a bookworm, or if you're into any type of history, and this stuff will actually I think it will transcend modern day science, because a lot of this stuff is pre-NASA and all of that. And when you really deconstruct some of those agencies and see that a lot of it was staged, like look what you can see with AI now. Look how you can literally put things anywhere. And then you think that back in the day with that technology, and even very common sense people, sometimes it takes people to not be so brainwashed by some universities. I swear, I don't know what they do to people over there. It's like they wave their hands around and put them under a spell, and it just sticks. It's like, just because someone taught you something once and you paid for that information, that doesn't mean that was correct. People don't realize too, is the same thing with doctors. They're getting, kind of wined and dined when it comes to prescriptions, and they come and they give them samples and they give them commissions. So everybody has their hands in the cookie jar and they don't even see it. And of course there's, they're like, oh, why would anyone lie about all of that? Well, why not? Because, think of all the funding that's gone into it. Think of all of the different propaganda that's gone into it. And, a lot of people fall victim to a lot of stuff, even with some of the wars out there. When you hear about it, it just sounds like, some type of drug deal, when they talk about uranium and everything else, right? I was listening to the news a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, a lot of people look at it on the surface and it's like, oh, they're making these products or whatever, they're a danger, so we got to go out there and demolish them, and it's like, well, maybe they just want a cut of it, for themselves, because they don't want anybody else to get so powerful. So why would you implore or deploy such crazy capabilities, right? Just on the whim of something, just because you think someone would have the same type of weapons you have, you see, right? So that stuff is really deep, and most people can't even see that far too. I'm like, yeah, it's probably, the resources, right? It's all about that right? Is that the new drug in town, right? Who knows what they're making with that crap? And it's almost like, a drug ring when they take the product for themselves. We do hear stories, just saying, as a local journalist. But if you read books like this, it'll kind of go into it. So basically, even nature is smart enough to know that it's not good to mess around and be self-destructive, especially when God made everything and put everything in its place. And I love some of these red pill chicks, right? Really interesting. I mean, I guess they couldn't use Rosie or Donald or whoever, right? because they use the most, manliest, atypical looking lady or whatever it wants to, dude looks like a lady to, be the voice, be this, alarm for men everywhere. And I just find it weird. So like, what are we going to call, you got all this feminism, this hatred for women. So I guess I'm an anti-misandrist, an anti-abuser, and anyone who fits that description, because people think it's cool now to be like modern day villains, like he. I have no experience. I have nothing to stand on. And how are all these people getting brand deals and trying to be some type of marriage counselors, but never been married? Never even had any type of close encounter, not even in the running. And not to say I'm not judging anyone who's not, because I don't judge people where, okay, you're in a relationship or you're not. I don't do that. I don't deconstruct people like that. But the professed coaches, they'll be like, oh, if you don't fit this mold, you're a piece of shit. Meanwhile, they don't fit any mold. And yet they are some sort of wisdom of what? I don't understand. And then when you dig into people's backstories a little bit, whatever Wikipedia can tell you, which, do you just pay to have your name go on Wikipedia? Because I find like, people who are not important even have a profile that's really interesting. So I was looking a little bit of like this red pill movement too, because if you guys know, you got some people that make a job out of like hate, and now they're saying, oh, Christian women are such hypocrites and going off. Meanwhile, their family must have been somewhat Christian to even have that many children and all of this stuff, right? So, they really have a lot to say, and then they'll be like, oh, because you'll see shorts just coming up, and I'm like, wow, this is interesting, right? Definitely sounds like some type of plant, because they don't have any real talent outside of just, talking out of their ass. And now they're saying, they're really, really just throwing whatever shit against the wall. So it is a sort of rage bait. Hi, welcome. It is a sort of rage bait when you hear people like this Pearly thing, which definitely looks like a thing, if you ask me. I really don't understand the gag. And someone who's only 29 years old is supposed to be some sage of this generation. And they were raised, Roman Catholic. Now they're just like hating on anyone that with any type of sense of, spirituality. But meanwhile, that's probably the only reason why they're on this plane, right? And it's almost like people just hate to be alive. Like they really hate themselves, and they're projecting, especially when it's, a woman hating on other women, like really making that their platform. And it's not like their life is like Susie Homemaker or any of that. And they just project and put women in boxes, just like, the abusers out there. And we really need to, make it, we need to depopularize, victimizing teenage girls and then blaming them for the actions of men who should have known better, especially when they were older than them, right? We're talking 17, 21, 22, all right? And then putting them in situations. And then if children come out of that, now it's the girl's fault the rest of her life. For what? Not getting a freaking abortion then? Like, which way is it? For stepping up? And it goes to show some people, they can talk all the lip service, but you got to walk it. You actually got to walk that walk, right? So that's a really deep thing, because I see that happen. We need to definitely teach women, because a lot of these women are, so compromised, and we got to teach young girls too, like it's all about condoms or nothing, right? And abstinence when you have to be tough, especially in this generation, unless it's someone who's going to be like a Superman. And believe me, I have this home for a reason, because, I would only be with someone who had that type of energy, so it's a reminder, so he can be proud of himself every day doing the right things. Imagine the real Superman freaking trying to be a dickhead to Lois. I mean, that story would not even pan out the same. And everyone thinks like, oh, they're that what being like a brute, acting like a total animal and stuff, and just being like, so demoralized that they demoralize other people. And I don't know, that can stem from whatever childhood, but to keep regenerating the same bad energy, that's why I put some of the artwork that I do. And it's like, yeah, not to be dark, it's to be realistic. I was thinking also that when you see like the northern lights, when you see almost like the spirits coming down, it almost looks like a piece of sperm. It's almost like you're going from one realm to the next. And when you see, it's like even in the womb, like you're fighting for your life just to come through, even if you come through, right? That's what my banner is. It's really like, I didn't even mean for it to come out like that, but the more I look at it, like the abstract art that it is, right? The more I'm like, wow, I can see that it's like, oh, you don't realize how close it was. Like, especially now the numbers have shot up. So obviously people are not smartening up because they would be more into prevention, into making sure it doesn't get to that point, if that's the case, or having, because it can happen to the best of whoever, you know what I mean? You promise the sun, the moon, the stars, right? And then all of a sudden, people switch up and it's too late, or you find yourself like, okay, you're active with, you're going steady with someone and boom, it doesn't take much. You know what I mean? Some women can have sex their whole life and, be barren. And then you get others who, and obviously at the time, everyone has, all these expectations. And a lot of the times it's the men who push the girls out, and a lot of girls crash out because it's like, oh, you got to play mommy. Now you got to play college student. Then you got to do all this. And then you hear all these lies like, oh, men are leaving women because what? Because they're working, because they go out and they have a life. It's like, no, actually, it's the other way around. A lot of the times, these idiots, they'll have the girls raise their children, and then they'll go to colleges or they'll go different jobs, and then they'll shack up with whoever, and all of a sudden they think they're upgrading now. Okay, now they're being like all into status, and it's like, oh, this person has this degree and this degree. It's like, yeah, I would have had this many and that many too if I wasn't busy doing this and that when I would have been light years ahead. So there is so many women out there who are being stunted in a way too, how it's like a grooming effect, maybe from the church on, however, right? So it's the women who were raised really religious who did have to step up, because if you didn't even have that program in you, it'd be so easy not to. And even when you thought of it and you were like, wow, being scared, and even, that being like something in the forefront, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there, and then you're like, you know what, you're taking accountability. That is a level of taking accountability too, because you're not going to punish an innocent person for the transgressions of adults. That wasn't something that I thought would be right, so it doesn't matter if you like the person or not at that point, because sometimes, I've met women, I've done youth outreach where there was domestic violence, where they'd be pregnant and, something would happen even with the man too, because they had to defend themselves. And it just, all of a sudden it would, that would be the catalyst sometimes when you're dealing with really neurotic men, that could just make them unravel. People think, oh, on paper, it sounds so great, to do all that and to play house, until you have to. And there's no guarantee, married or not, that person's going to do the right thing. I know women who were married, who were pregnant, they were cheated on when they were pregnant. You know what I mean? So I heard a little bit of everything through the grapevine, through the family lineage. So you hear it and you're like, wow, you know what I mean? This is real stories, real testimonies. Now, all this blanket lies and statements that you hear on here. So even on Wikipedia, you got this character, right? I guess they were raised Roman Catholic. Now they spit on everything, right? But they were raised with a large family, supposedly 9 siblings. 3 were adopted, and 1 was placed for adoption. That sounds really, really, really strange. And they go so hard about women and, women's rights, which the anti-feminism movement, if you go into it, they're against women having property, having any type of say, any type of opportunities, any type of education, and how satanic and demonic and, really self-destructive a society, does that really sound right? It's like, where is the equality, like man and women? It's like, is this going to be a lesbian society, an asexual society with these things, trying to tell the rest of us, like, okay, are you even in a healthy relationship? We really need to stop vetting some of these self-professed, relationship gurus, okay? And people, you're like, oh, judging people that they have to be so good in their certain expertise, right? And they can only talk about that, but yet the rules don't apply for certain people. Why? Because they come from a so-called privileged background, right? They didn't, their family didn't get out the mud, or what else? What else is there? Who knows? But anyways, their mother was a U.S. board of directors. They were on the U.S. board of directors. So that sounds like someone who is out there. Like, do they have mommy issues? Do they feel like they didn't get enough attention because they had such a big family? Well, hey, it can't be always about you. This shit is hard. Have you tried it for yourself? And people are so quick to, either not have kids or have little ones that are really small and haven't even gone through the whole roller coaster of the up and down through the lifetime. And then just think, oh, they can be so quick to call who's a bad mother or who's a good mother with like no, no reasoning behind it, right? So a lot of it is self-projection, because when you read certain things, you're like, excuse me. And the mother was like some type of board of director for a self-help organization for women. I think I like the mother better than this one. I don't think this one's developed all the way properly. And I can understand that some people are mad at the world or whatever. And they can think, oh, that they're so much smarter just because, oh, they talk shit about others, and they'll pick the most, I would say, explosive type of topics. And they were banned before, but of course people love, anything that's dramatic, even if it's, not even real, because this person, their occupation is supposed to be a cultural and political commentator. Am I seeing this correctly? Am I in the movie Idiocracy? I can't. I don't know what portal I'm in, but this can't be real. In 2026, this is what you guys are doing. This is how you're doing it, huh? The movement now is anti-feminism. It's like, yeah, anti-woman. Okay, if you're gay, just say that. I mean, even the gays are on our side as well too. There's a lot of allies out there who love their mothers and don't hate women. And even if you don't get along with your mother, you don't have to hate her like that. Me and my mom had our ups and downs, but I'm not such a cretin that I can't look past it and realize my own ignorance in a lot of it too, and not having enough perspective, right? And you have to have a level of respect, because if you see how close it could have been before you came into this world, I mean, people need to look at things spiritually. Like, I should make a movie, like having the womb, having the eggs and the sperm fight it out, like the egg, like, hell no. Or the sperm, like, talking to each other, like, hey, you really want to go through that portal? You might not even survive that part. Then you got to go into a realm where you got to fight for your life, for food, for everything else. You can, you know what I mean? It cannot work well. You cannot even survive that. So it's like every instance, that's what you're doing. And it's like, yeah, people have to work together to make life functional. Even in a corporation, even in a company, even in a group, if people can't work together, it's like, how are things going to get done? It's like, you have to have a level of attitude in this life, right? Like, you're going to do the best you can. You're going to make your mistakes. But when you sit down and you just blame one side, that's like me blaming a child for life's problems or for anything, especially, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a man getting mad at a woman, but it's like, it's usually the woman he chose to spend time around. And it's somebody that is weaker than them, right? So how does that make them sound? And to say that, oh, it's just victim mentality, it's like, yeah, well, that's why women, especially who cared about their rights, were such great allies, because they were the type of women to talk about rights and rights for all. And now it became, oh, now, because of how we were born as a woman, now we can't have that. And I'm like, what era are we in? That's crazy. And the biggest, your biggest ally could be right in front of you, but now you're being, sexist and everything else. It's egregious. And I think this is like, I guess, some type of, slam poetry, porn. I don't know what this is doing for people, but I'm like, you're dealing with someone who's barely 30 years old. Okay, they played volleyball. So what? Now they're this big sage to comment on modern sexual relations between men and women? Really? This not someone who's been married 30 years, not someone who's been through the ups and downs. And there's a lot of women, they could have started off like, oh, having a marriage then, or being mistreated, and then, or having to get their career later, doing the kids thing. It's like, okay, sometimes things are unplanned. So what are you supposed to do? So if this happened to, it's not like some of these people that are talking are all holier than thou and like not going out there dating and stuff. It's like, okay, if you were in a position like that, you wouldn't step up. Oh, maybe you wouldn't. But even if you did and it didn't work out, what are you to do then? And then it's like everyone is your friend until, they have no use for you, or you guys don't get along. And yeah, maybe people will start talking crap about each other when it's, years later or whatever, or when it first happened. It doesn't matter, because people are just, everyone needs to blame someone, and it could be like, both parties involved too. Shit just happens, and that happens for a lot of people, and it happens all over the world. It's not just in America. Like, let's be real, go look at the stats all over the world, right? And it's like, really, to just blame people too, especially being really, really young and naive. Okay, being out where they shouldn't have been. And a lot of times, they're in places because of other family members. I keep things respectful, but it's like, if I ever get, push comes to shove, like, really? You know what I'm saying? When I look back to how young I was and impressionable, and it's like, yeah, I had this whole plan for myself, but I was willing to put it on hold, because it's like, oops, okay, what do you do when the going gets tough? You know what I mean? And it's like, that takes a lot of love. You can love your child more than you dislike your ex. That's the bottom line, right? So I think that is like a healthy discussion, especially with younger girls too, because they get so lost in the sauce. But you have to be really careful. But when you're young, you're hearing it more and more, and people got to learn for themselves, really. But I would look into this person a little bit more before people start acting like this person is a professional. But look up chapter 73 in the book of Enoch. It is a full moon. The Most High did make the light for the day and one for night. Without the moon, ships would probably be crashing into each other. Before there were lights, it was a light to illuminate people, traveling in the darkness. And it talks about, how it's a she. So there's always that masculine connotation in history, with the sun having that warm energy, and then the moon having more of that cool energy, right? And being smaller. And it says here, and after this law, I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon, and her circumference, and of course, my name, is like the circumference of the heaven. And her chariot in which she rides is driven by the winds, and light is given to her in definite measure. And her rising and setting change every month. And her days are like the days of the sun. And when her light is uniform, full, like it is tonight, well, close to it because it looks pretty round, it amounts to the seventh part of the light of the sun. And thus she rises. And her first phase in the east comes forth on the 30th morning, and on that day she becomes visible and constitutes for you the first phase of the moon. On the 30th day, together with the sun in the portal, where the sun rises, and the one half of her goes forth by a seventh part, and her whole circumference is empty, without light, with the exception of 1/7 part of it. You guys can read the rest on your own. This is a really cool book because it's like pre all of that NASA stuff. Yeah, might be too much for you guys. But let me read a little bit, apparently, of what this. So, well, she did do sales. Is that a surprise? And they come from like, they're living off their family. It's like one of those. It's like, go find your own path, you damn leech. This one, so they promote the anti-feminist agenda. Okay, let's see what it means, guys. It's an opposition to feminism. In the late 19th century and earlier 20th century, anti-feminists opposed particular policy proposals for women's rights, such as the right to vote, educational opportunities, property rights, and access to birth control. And although some of the scriptures talk about birth control, there's a lot of men who do forcibly do what they do, and then they try to flip the script. They're the ones who need to watch where that stuff is going and use protection. And these young men need to follow up with that, and women need to be like, no, if you're putting me in harm's way, if they try to, I don't care if you guys have been going out for a while and he says, I love you, and he's doing all these things and whatever, crying in front of you, all of that stuff. If he tries to come near you with any type of secretion, look at that as an assault on your very life. Seriously, because you will almost sacrifice yourself, almost die, right? Thinking like, oh my gosh, this is like, evil if I, terminate this. Just to later on be demoralized and to be treated like, oh, okay, like you had nothing better to do, like this was the best thing that could ever happen to you, like trying to brain train you into acting like, this is amazing. But over time, kind of just you're kind of almost putting down those wifely duties and motherly duties, and now uplifting the career stuff. But now you're already in. It's like, oh, okay, now that's important. Well, I should have did that before because that was the road I was on. So now, okay, now I'm feeling I'm not good enough because, okay, now I'm supposed to have that and do the mother thing at the same time. Like, can you see the dichotomy there? Like, so again, when women are at that crossroads, especially at a certain age, yeah, it's really hard to know like which way they're going to go. That is like a personal choice. But when you see now the effects and like, how women are treated overall, is there a wonder why the number is like, it's higher now than it was in my generation in the 90s? Like it's literally higher now. So like there needs to be more discussion. And yeah, that's why when I put that picture, it's like I'm telling the souls, hey, it is hostile here because you thought you were coming through one space. Now you got to fight that. And that's only a 1 in a whatever chance you'll even make it. And then everyone thinks, oh, they should have been, born into this set of parents or that. Oh, I wish it was better. People would have it really, really good. And even if it wasn't perfect, it's definitely was doable and a lot better than even our parents. I was hearing the freaking horror stories of survival from my own parents. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Kids want to freaking put their nose in the air because what? You didn't let them, party in your house, or, what I'm saying? Like use up all your money or what? Like it is crazy. It is really, really crazy, just the difference. So, there has to be a happy medium because you got people now like, they're stuck, right? And now it's like, okay, attack against the women. Yeah, let's just, have the moon come crashing down. If anything, there is a lot of movies that show that, guys, like, oh, the moon, like, exploding and stuff. I don't know what they're trying to say there. But yeah, so some type of birth control, it could be like condoms or whatever. People need to really think about that because there's a lot of guys who don't care about women. They're like, I want to find a woman and we're going to have a bunch of kids. Who said if the guys had to have that many kids, would they even want to have them? If they had to do the work and it go through their body, do you know how painful that stuff is? Do you know how like a year of your life is like put on hold? Do you know like the aftermath? It's like it's crazy. It takes like years just to even normalize yourself. And now you got sickos on here saying that, oh, you can just put a woman in a medically induced coma. She don't even need to be awake for us to use them that way. It's disgusting. It really is a very barbaric, sad society. And even the ones who try to act modest or laid back or whatever, you can see it in their eyes. And even when they make comments or whatever, they're just so quick to judge women on whatever basis, and you can tell they're like heavily brainwashed. But they'll be the first ones to have a wandering eye. They'll be the first ones to act the fool, right, and to act like they are not the traditional kind at all, just because they got a sucker to play along with them for a little while. That don't mean much in this big society, I'll tell you that right now. So this is definitely like a newer movement, I guess, now, because men are blaming women for lower college entrance. That has nothing to do with women. Always blaming women for their shortcomings. If it has to do with you and your life, what does that got to do with others? Just you can't blame others if you lose out in a race. There's only so many ways we can use like these trivial, it's very trivial, these arguments. And so so we're being blamed for that, and the graduate rates of young men, although it's the women who are bringing the kids to school, investing in all those activities, and was the ones bringing them to school, picking them up, making sure they were getting their homework done, making sure they were getting sufficient sleep and nutrition and meals and all of that, and the space needed, their own rooms to get that done and stuff. And also this far right extremist, it's a very extremist movement against women. They're starting to realize that, and blaming us for discrimination of men. No, women don't hate men. They hate abusive ones. They hate disrespectful ones that want to exploit them or try to objectify them, right? Don't want to get to know them. Don't like that. That's very weird to me. That I wouldn't even say that's homoerotic, because you see a lot of gay people actually get along and seem to have healthy relationships. So I really don't know what that is. It's very animalistic. I would just say demonic. I mean, there's only one word to describe it, right? Because God made women, and it's not just to be used for whatever they thought, okay? And Adam wasn't treating Eve like that. I don't know what you thought, so you need to take your freaking Genghis Khan shit and shove it up where the sun don't shine, you heard me? And be done with it, because the more I hear some of the rhetoric, the more I'm like, wow. And I hope they're being monitored too. You're talking about raping women and just impregnating them so you can have your demonic offspring, and people are supposed to care about that and support that shit. Okay. Good to know. People should be aware of that. And those are the type of people who shouldn't be parents. It's one thing to be a teenager, like the story Jack and Diane, like that song, doing the best that you can, right? Two crazy kids, just trying to make it work. And then it's like to what they're saying now, you know what I mean? It's a very far cry, to, okay, now blaming women, now blaming the teenagers, right? It's like, are you kidding me? Where were the parents? Where was the guidance? Okay. And at the end of the day, boys need to be accountable. I'm sorry, you're stronger for a reason. You want all these accolades, like you're so much smarter and faster and all that, but one thing goes wrong and it's the girl's fault. Does that even make any sense? Control what you do with yourself. That's all I'm saying. That's on you. Doesn't matter if the girl is on birth control or not birth control, because a lot of girls who are on birth control, a lot of babies are here because of that too. That stuff is not foolproof. And why should it be up to the woman to hurt her body? Women, have you noticed that men don't want to take birth control even though they need to take it because they're the ones that want to have sex more? So why are you taking the birth control? Don't you see how much women have been brain trained? And it's like, yeah, when are women actually going to respect themselves? I haven't seen the feminist movement in its full glory yet. When are women actually going to, you know what I mean, respect the fact that they've been poisoning themselves to please a man, to make things easier for him? Woo! We got to sound the alarms for that, guys. Yeah. I don't think that's what Superman would expect. You guys got a lot of jokers out there. So yeah, I guess they talk about a crisis of feminization of society. No one tells the guys to put dresses on and to go put boobs in their chest and to do what they do. No one told them to do any of that stuff, or to put earrings in their ears and slowly go down that direction. No one told them to do any of that stuff. Men feminize themselves. A lot of them worry too much about the women are doing, and then they end up emulating it because, you know, if you fixate it on it so much, you know what starts happening? You become the thing you supposedly hate, right? You got something called the Oedipus complex, even the Madonna horror complex. I went into that in one of my prior videos, where you'll see that with certain characters, even with the show Mad Men. That's a good one to kind of use as like homework. And you'll see the character of John Hamm. He has like mommy issues, whatever. And some of these guys, especially if they were heavily raised in the church or religious sectors, they will put women in boxes where they will put their wife in this like Saint Virgin Mary box where she's like a doll, where she's like a Barbie and she can just smile and she bakes cookies and she, you know, goes to church with the kids or whatever. And then he'll have, you know, whoever, could be at work or whoever, right? And it could be women who just have this aesthetic, or it can be women that they follow online, however else, and they'll have the, you know, so-called whore aesthetic, right? And they'll be the type of women who will get them going and, you know, turn them on and all of that, and they can satiate all of that with them, right? So they can't find that all-in-one woman having a healthy dynamic where he can, you know, integrate all of that, where, yeah, she can have her role, you know, out in the streets and in the sheets kind of thing, however, right? You know how they say it. No, it doesn't work for them. He will become impotent around his wife. It would be like almost like a sister. And he will still judge her if like men look at her. He'll be really possessive, and he'll, you know, and it could be nothing that she's doing wrong. She could have, you know, followed all the rules. She did everything right. And at the end, she still gets, you know what I mean, deceived and betrayed because, you know, this guy is doing all this stuff, and which is putting her health at risk because you're opening the door for that. You don't know where all these other people are at too, right? So it's really interesting to see that type of personality, right? Because you see that play out a lot more, and then you'll see that also out in, you know, in the media and stuff like that, portraying certain people in these boxes. And that really comes from somebody who dealt with like a really strict background kind of thing. And that's something that they got to work on: therapy, religion, whatever, divine, anything. And because that's something that comes from them, it's not even the people that they're interacting with. It has to do with them. They actually you know, they'll have an issue maybe with a parent. It could be a mother, and any infraction, they'll make it bigger, maybe because they were smaller when it happened, or she could have yelled and it could have felt like a big monster yelling, you know what I mean? And they will like tattoo that in their mind forever. But look what this anti-feminism, you know, whole movement is too. It's really interesting because, you know, you can see where it is. It's, you know, trying to take women's opportunities and any type of progress, or, you know, any type of honor, it sounds like. And, you know, the people that push it too, it seems to be, you know, kind of one of those marketing things. And you can tell people too don't like anyone speaking as if they're, you know, so blameless or whatever. But I'm like, it is such a scam. And, you know, how are you going to have someone who embodies everything against what they preach. But yeah, it goes to show it has to deal with the connections. Oh, Ben Shapiro. So they know the right people, right? They've been in certain back rooms. So yeah, it goes to show they're part of that agenda too, because it's very anti-women. Look at a lot of Disney stories. They kill the mother. They take the mother out of the movies. It's sick. Like some of these guys, if they could just inseminate themselves, that's what they would do. Yeah, real nice creatures that would be running around. Yeah, we're going to see some freaking mutants, all right, and it's not going to be nothing nice. And if you're not a quality person, or you don't even care, why should this world keep going and going and going the way it does, right? People get so in their ego, like they think they have to reproduce and whatever. And a lot of people, they don't want to admit it. It's just an ego thing. It's one thing, hey, if you plan it and you're with the right person. A lot of people, hey, if it's not planned and you step over, you can fall in love, with the child. That stuff happens all the time too. A lot of people, they plan it because they believe this is my legacy. I've arrived if I've done this. And yeah, in a way, it is a legacy to a point. But if that's all you stand on, or if you go out before you even meet a woman, a lot of guys don't like it when women are talking about marriage and they don't even have a guy in their mind. They don't want to just feel like a stand-in. Well, women don't want to feel like a surrogate, whatever. When you're like, oh, I just want to have children, like you hear all this stuff. But like the guy is not, doesn't have a prospect, and that stuff should come about if you're with the right person, because it's a whole different experience if it's not, and it's not so fun and sweet and all the rainbows and all of that stuff, right? So people need to think about that part before they go down the rabbit hole. And if you have someone just like, yeah, I want this, and that. All right, well, they already have an agenda. They already have a full plan. They can't work in tandem with everyone else. And just like the moon has to trail behind the sun for the course of the world to do what it got to do. It controls, like, they say the water, the oceans, and all that. And maybe if it was dysfunctional, you'd have tidal waves and tsunamis, all that crazy stuff, right? And so like everything has an order. And so man and women were supposed to work with each other and not against each other. And that it goes across, nationalities, races, and all of that. It's a basic fundamental principle that people are supposed to learn to work together. And I learned that the hard way, even on these spaces, just being platonic and trying to work with people, how competitive and nasty and misandrous or whatever, misogynist. I know people want to call me a misandrous. No. And although the ones who really don't like men, they could be some out there. It could be really hardcore, maybe lesbians or whatever. I wouldn't even go that far in that discussion. I'm talking about people who are like mistreating women. There are men who go out of their way to objectify women, to make them feel low, to blame all the world's problems on. That's who I have a problem with, because I also met the good guys too. They are out there, okay? I was inspired to buy this for one. Of course, I got the Wonder Woman one, duh. And so I can tell the difference because of meeting the solid ones and the good ones. So I can stand on it, right? And I do have the experience. And hey, no one's perfect. I'm not trying to be the face of anything, but I'm trying to be pro common sense and anti abuser of women, anti woman abuser, right? That's a huge deal. And abuse starts with like verbal abuse. So picking on everything about the opposite sex with every topic, and to the point where it's like ad nauseum, right? Shows, it exploits and it reveals, what these people's intentions are. And you guys, really need to be careful with that. But if you look at their history, not much to see there, guys. I'm like, there's a lot of question marks in that situation. I'm going to be respectful and I not dissect it too much. But yeah, things that make you go, and I'm like, I'm sure that rabbit hole is deep and dirty, okay? But I don't know, they must have, shook the right hand or whatever. And, even some people, I got some comments, oh, you know, if I ever bring up anybody who looks trans or whatever, they try to bring it back. Maybe it was some of their trolls. But this person, if they're a woman, they are not trying too hard. And if they are, because even with that mindset, it's like your dimensions are kind of interesting. And with that mindset, it's not a very female mindset, because natural women won't go that hard unless they really, really have a problem with their mother and they're very passive aggressive, or they need their inheritance, or they need their finance, so they can't say too much. But they will talk about everyone else who does remind them or is a reflection of the person they hate. Because in their mind, that's like cathartic. That's a way to get it off their chest. You know what I'm trying to say? Oh, there's more than meets the eye. That's all I know. But if the sun fought with the moon, what would happen? Nature knows better. Nature is not going to have, you know, the elements doing what it do. And it doesn't need human intervention. If everyone died today, the wind would still blow. The moon would still do what she do. The sun would rise again. And then what? So people really not need to stop thinking that their opinion is like some huge gospel, you know, on these spaces. And numbers don't always equate value. I know that much, you know, Jerry Springer and the rest of them. And if that's as high as society wants to go, it's not doing too well. And the souls are on the other side. They're not really missing out on anything, because if they only knew they're being used for, you know, exploitation and validation, whatever else, and then it's just nothing but a fight of survival, people would definitely, you know, be a little bit more empathetic and, you know, hopefully be a little tougher too. And, you know, if you have to, you can be the Superman or a woman of your own life too, and be on the right side of things and use your power for good and to try to help those in need or those who are weaker, instead of trying to be like, you know, trying to be like, hey, it was your fault. You know, it's like me like complaining about a little doggy or what a kid's doing every Friday. It's freaking retarded. That's where we're going, guys. I hope you guys have a great night. I'm off. We're at almost an hour, but yeah, do a little background, whatever. Some of these people, I don't claim to be anything, so there ain't nothing to see here. And of course, people are going to do what they do. There's a lot of people who have, you know, the most to say. And I've had my little commentary videos, which is funny. A lot of it could be trolling too, or even people too, that you put boundaries down. It's like you can do everything right. And, you know, still when you grow up, you put your foot down and you're like, hey, I'm going to live the rest of my life. I could have put a lot of people in jail, got them into a lot of trouble. Because you look back, you're like, yeah, there was some things that weren't right. And I wasn't the criminal in the situation. I was the victim, but I am not going to be no victim. I am going to be a victor, and I'm going to educate people and tell people to be smart, especially young women. And I hope you guys too protect the girls in your life. You know, brothers, protect your sisters. There's a lot of families where the brothers are not protecting their sisters. If anything, they want to exploit women and, you know, be even more of a problem, right? And you have to be allies with one another. You know, sometimes blood is not always thicker than water. And a lot of people who are smiling that you think are so successful and have such great families, a lot of the times those people have a lot of skeletons. And the ones who stood up and moved alone and dealt with the little petty ridicule are the ones who didn't put up with it and would not stand beside people who would condone that type of behavior. Okay, so remember that. Okay, power is not always in numbers. Sometimes the weakest people need to be in a big group to validate, you know, their bullshit. All right, just remember that. Hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time.